Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s with this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, 1987 at online booksellers everywhere. There was a mass shooting that took place in the Dallas area. And in this incident, which took place at the Allen Outlet Mall in Allen, Texas, 33-year-old Mauricio Garcia allegedly got out of his gray Dodge Charger dressed in black and wearing a vest with a patch that said RWDS, Right Wing Death Squad. And as he stepped out of his vehicle with an AR-15 style rifle, he began shooting at shoppers at the mall and sadly took the lives of 8 of those shoppers before he was shot and killed by police. Now, the police see this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the behavior Mauricio Garcia allegedly participated in, it fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that Mauricio Garcia definitely was a man in crisis way before he ever participated in this mass shooting. Now, according to reports back in 2008, Mauricio Garcia was kicked out of the U.S. military for alleged mental health reasons on a Section 8. And when somebody gets a Section 8, it's a sign that this individual has a problem working in the U.S. military, and that problem possibly is because these individuals have a problem with male authority and male authority figures, and because they have a problem dealing with male authority and male authority figures, these individuals have problems with following the chain of command, have a problem going out here and following orders, and have a problem respecting authority. And this was detailed in the early part of the movie Full Metal Jacket by Stanley Kubrick with Vincent D'Onofrio's character, Pyle. And this is the same pattern that I believe possibly led to Mauricio Garcia being kicked out of the military. And maybe it was possible it was that being kicked out of the military that led to Mauricio Garcia further becoming a man in crisis, because a lot of beta males, they have a real problem with male authority, and they have an even worse problem as related to rejection. And because these individuals have a real serious problem with rejection, many of these beta males wind up simmering and boiling and seething in anger for years on end. And because these men seethe in anger, they wind up eventually exploding in a rage. And I believe what happened with Mauricio Garcia is, as he was seething in anger about being rejected from the U.S. military for these mental health issues, this further exacerbated those alleged mental health issues. And as this exacerbated his issues, he then entered a place that many beta males go to escape the real world. They go to a place I call the secret world. Now, the secret world is a place in the rose-colored reality of a beta male where they feel secure about expressing their natural masculinity, because many of these men are taught to be ashamed of their natural masculinity in our gynocentric society. And many of these males, when they feel that they cannot compete or function in the real world, they start to enter the secret world in order to express their natural masculinity. And I believe that's what happened here with Mauricio Garcia. He started to feel like he could not express his natural masculinity after getting rejected by the U.S. military. And after getting rejected by the U.S. military, he then felt the only place he felt safe to express his natural masculinity was the secret world. And in that secret world, he began to listen to white supremacists And as he listened to these white supremacists on platforms like Breitbart and Stormfront and many other racist platforms like Gab and BitChute, Mauricio Garcia basically got indoctrinated into white supremacy. Even though he was Hispanic, he thought he identified with these white supremacists because he believed that these white supremacists had power. And as he believed these white supremacists had power, he wanted to have, he began to identify with these white supremacists. And as he identified with these white supremacists, he became radicalized by white supremacy. That possibly is the reason why he had the RWDS right-wing death squad patch on his vest, and it possibly was a motive for the murders he participated in. Because many beta males, when they feel alienated from society, what they do again is identify with groups that have power. And it looks like to me that Mauricio Garcia went on the World Wide Web and he entered into the white supremacist echo chamber. And as he entered into the white supremacist far-right echo chamber, he began to identify with white supremacy and believed that the only way he could get power was to become a white supremacist and act just like a white supremacist. Because there are a lot of beta males who again identify with racist and white supremacists, and Mauricio Garcia possibly was one of these Hispanics who believed that he could pass for white, and also believed that if he identified with white supremacy, they would give him the benefits of their racist system. This is a covert contract that many beta males participate in as related to being a Hispanic or an Asian or an Arab. They will buy into the system of white supremacy, believing that they will receive benefits if they go after the enemies of white supremacy. And possibly Mauricio Garcia saw that there were enemies to him that he related to, as related to what he read and saw online, and also on networks like Fox News. What he possibly saw on those websites and Fox News basically made him believe that if he became an ally as related to dealing with the enemies of the United States, he would gain favor and approval in white supremacist circles. Because oftentimes with many of these beta males, they again create more covert contracts with people that they see online in these echo chambers, and as they go out here and look to gain the favor and approval of those individuals, they start by listening to the rhetoric and start believing the rhetoric that they see online as true. And as they further get indoctrinated and radicalized on these websites, they start buying into these conspiracy theories that are flouted on many of these platforms about enemies of the country, and want to go out here and buy into this rhetoric because it further fuels their ideas and ideals as related to the country. And I believe that's what happened with Mauricio Garcia here. He basically bought into these far-right media, and he bought into the far-right narratives, and he believed that the only way to deal with these so-called enemies of America was to go out here and take the lives of people. And that's something that beta males like to do in their rose-colored reality, because with most beta males, they do not see the real world. No, they see a place that is completely rose-colored, and everything in that world is completely distorted. And as everything here is completely distorted, what these individuals do is want to go out here and believe that they are the hero that is saving America. And that possibly would be the motive for Mauricio Garcia going to the Allen Outlet Mall as a member of the RWDS that he believed he was a part of. He believed that as a part of the RWDS, he was going to take out the enemies of America, not seeing how these were just everyday U.S. citizens like you and I. No, in his warped, distorted world where he lived in an echo chamber, what happened was this individual thought, oh, I'm going to take out the enemies of America and be a hero. And sadly, he wound up taking the lives of 8 innocent shoppers before police wound up taking his own life. Now, this incident is quite troubling because it was a part of a weekend of violence. And in that weekend of violence, we not only saw Mauricio Garcia's mass shooting, we also saw another individual take a Range Rover and drive it into a group of migrants waiting at a bus stop. And both of these incidents happening over a weekend after a week where there were multiple mass shootings shows how the frequency of violence is getting to be quite troubling, because we are only 5 months into the year and we have had over 199 mass shootings and other assorted violent incidents. And this basically proves a point that I made as a thesis in 2018 when I started doing these man crisis videos. And that thesis was that we were going to see an increase in frequency of this violence. And the reason why we are seeing this increase in frequency of this violence doesn't have anything to do with guns. And you'll have many politicians come out here saying that this is a gun control issue. No, this is not a gun control issue. This is an issue as related to the American family and the damage done to the American family back in the 1960s and 1970s when America decided to go along with the white feminist movement, and it created policies like the no-fault divorce and the welfare state, because it was the creation of no-fault divorce and the welfare state that led to the social engineering of the beta male, a child who was a male who was usually now raised by a single mother. And as that child was raised by a single mother, many in the 60s and 70s thought a woman alone could raise a boy to become a man. But we see almost 60 years later, those women raised 3 generations of boys who are becoming men in crisis. And as these boys have gone on to have their own children, we have seen an increase in frequency of violence all across the country and all across the world, because many of these boys do not have the male life skills or male survival skills to navigate the world, and many of these boys do not have the male life skills or survival skills that only a father can teach, that will help them be able to know how to function in the world. And sadly, most of America would rather debate gun control because they don't want to deal with the painful thing of having to take responsibility for the failure of almost 60 years of blue party policies or red party policies, because Richard Nixon was the one who approved no-fault divorce, and they don't want to take acknowledgement of that or acknowledge that many of America's women are responsible for the way many of our boys have been raised to become dysfunctional men. No, many of Americans don't want to confront many of America's mothers who were indoctrinated into feminism and let them know that they absolutely failed at raising today's boys, because many of today's boys, they do not know how to function, they do not know how to think critically or problem solve, and because many of them were raised in a way that made it where they don't know how to think critically or problem solve, what happens is you get men who go to extremes, and as they go to extremes, they get indoctrinated and radicalized into extreme right-wing ideology like Mauricio Garcia, because what happens is that far right-wing ideology gives them a scapegoat to blame, and it gives them a scapegoat to blame and an enemy to blame for the state of their lives. And as they have that enemy to blame for the state of their lives, what they do is go out here and look to do harm to that enemy, when the real enemy was the system that, again, taught us that we could raise boys to become men without men. And now we have a problem because we have an increasing large number of men who are becoming men in crisis. And this whole problem has actually gotten far worse after the COVID-19 pandemic, because the lockdowns created a lot of these males becoming from ticking time bombs to landmines. And as these individuals like Mauricio Garcia basically sat there online, imbibing a lot of radical far right and far left media, many of these males just were radicalized by that media. And as they were radicalized by that media, they believed that America has become an enemy to its citizens, and these individuals believe that they want to take action against the so-called enemies with these terroristic stunts, because don't let anybody fool you, this possibly was an act of terrorism, and it possibly was because this individual was wearing an RWDS patch. And again, this right-wing death squad is a terrorist acronym as related to white supremacy. And you have Hispanics who identify with white supremacy because they want to be white. So you have an individual here who was a clear and present danger, but he was a clear and present danger that many people did not want to acknowledge, because here in America we refuse to acknowledge the man crisis in this country. We refuse to acknowledge that the way we have raised boys to become men has created a bunch of men in crisis, and these men in crisis, they don't know how to function, so they want to destroy the world around them since they can't work in that world. And that possibly was a motive for Mauricio Garcia to participate in this weekend murder. He possibly felt motivated because he felt like he could not function in the U.S. military, and since he could not function in the U.S. military, he felt like he wanted to destroy the world around him after becoming radicalized by these far-right websites and far-right media like Fox News. And we are in, again, a very dangerous situation because we have all of these people who are polarized, and a lot of people have become polarized since 2008 when Mauricio Garcia became a member of the military, because many people are angry about Barack Obama, the first black president. And this is one of the things that has triggered a lot of beta males as related to their perception of reality. A lot of racists, like who are white, black, Hispanic, and Arab, they were triggered by Barack Obama's election, and that basically destroyed their whole perception of a smooth world, a world where they could believe they were the only ones who would be allowed access to the positions of power and control over the positions of economic and political power in this country. And with that whole perception completely shattered for many people who are white and non-black, what has happened is we've seen a lot of these individuals basically out here losing it all across the country because they cannot deal with their smooth world being disrupted, and the whole perception of a Barack Obama shatters their rose-colored reality about whites being the only ones who will have power in this country, and they want to take power by participating in this kind of violence. So this is why we see a lot of beta males basically falling apart, because after the pandemic, a lot of these individuals did get radicalized as related to imbibing all of this media on media and social media. And this is what we saw allegedly on Mauricio Garcia's social media. And again, this is a pattern as related to a lot of these males, and it's all connected to the man crisis. A man crisis in this country people don't want to acknowledge, but we have a problem with the way we are raising boys to become men in this country. And if we don't do anything about the way we raise boys to become men in this country, it's going to get even worse than it is right now, where we have, again, over 190 mass shootings in less than 5 months. And with us having over 190 of these shootings, again, this isn't a gun issue, because many states have gun control laws, and even Texas has gun control laws to a point. And the whole thing isn't the guns that need to be controlled. The problem is we've got people who do not have any sort of self-control. And again, this is possibly the reason why Mauricio Garcia was kicked out of the military, because he was a male who could not follow male authority, could not follow orders, could not follow the lead of other men. and also had no self-control. So, like the character in the movie Full Metal Jacket, Private Pyle, he was a danger to others and himself. And while the military identified this man's danger, sadly, most of America did not identify this man's danger. And sadly, this is why 8 people lost their lives, because nobody identified the danger of a man in crisis. Now, if you want to learn what leads to many males becoming dysfunctional like this and going into these violent spectrum of behaviors, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App. And if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.